Hey there, you're watching the Data Dispatch. Thank you so much for tuning in. So, one of my daughters and I just pulled in from a 6-day overland style road trip to Big Bend. We did almost 1,500 miles, 6 days, 4 different campsites. It was an incredible trip. I was just about to start unloading, but before I did that, and sort of while my tent was drying, I thought what I might do is walk you through my gear setup for this trip and talk about the things that I liked and didn't like about each thing while it's really fresh in my mind. Alright, so first off, the rig. This is a 2019 GMC Sierra AT4. The only thing that I've done at all is put a small lift on the front so that I could fit 35 by 12.5 inch BFG KO2s. That's the only mod I've done. This is my daily driver, and for what I'm the style of camping and off-road type stuff that I do, this is perfectly acceptable. I used the Dometic CFX 375. If you watched my last video, you know that I think that this is too big, and it's after using it for 6 days, I still agree with that. We had plenty of space, too much space. I mean, the thing is incredible. I just wish I had a slightly smaller one, but it worked perfectly. For power, I use my EcoFlow Delta 1300. I think it's like 1260 watt hours, something like that. What I do is I keep the plug from the fridge into the battery at all times, and then I just run the plug from the battery up here and just plug it in up front, and then when I stop, I unplug it, because that cigarette port continues to go, and I didn't want to run my truck battery out. On the back seats, I'm running the Blue Ridge Overland Gear Molly panels, the MyMedic. I like having this just even for like general use, much less on road trips and things like that. And then a couple packs, and these just have things like tissues and napkins and stuff in it right now. On the back, I have the Retrax bed cover with the T-slots. I think it's called the XR, I believe. It enables me to have the rack while still being open. It's super easy. It's very lockable. This is the Front Runner Slimline 2 with the tall risers. That works really well because while the tent's up here, I'm still able to, with my rear view mirror, see underneath a little bit, so I don't feel like I'm completely blind to the back. Now, that being said, one reason that I do run my fridge mostly in that back seat, unless I'm going with all 4 of us, is because this bed cover isn't super waterproof. It's not like, it just lets a little bit of water in heavy rains, which I'm not really worried about the fridge in that situation, but I am kind of worried about that battery. I don't know how well it would do back here if it got wet. I'm guessing not very well. So that's why that's in the back seat. I think some of the other bed covers I've heard, like the Diamondback, things like that, are a little bit more weatherproof, but I don't know. I think I would rather give up a little bit of that weatherproofness for the ease of access with the tent on. I can still get in. Whereas if the tent were on something like the Diamondback, I don't think there's a way to be able to get in from the sides like this. Up top, this is our new 23-0 Walkabout 72. This thing was fantastic. It is large. It is super comfortable. It has this light suppression technology, which right now I have it all opened up at this very dark black fabric that when it's all closed down, I mean, you can't see anything. It was great to be able to sleep in. Big mattress. It's like a king size bed, or at least close to up there. It's really, really great. Completely love that tent. The reason I went with this one instead of something like the iCamper, which number one costs, obviously this is half the price of the iCamper 2.0, and I think less than half the price of the new one that's coming out. Also size, sometimes two of us go all the time, 3 and up to 4 of us go iCamper. That's just undoable. 4 would be, they claim this is a 4-person tent, but that's sardine can style up there. 3 though would be pretty comfortable, and with 2 of us, even with our Icy Breeze, which I'll show you in a little bit, still had plenty of space. This was great. The only thing I didn't like was, so far, we've only spent the 6 nights in it, it is kind of loud when it gets windy. Now, I mean crazy windy. Right now, it's a little bit windy right now, but I'm still able to keep these windows open, it got so windy while we were in Big Bend that I thought that this might break away. And so I put it down, and when I did, that the rainfly was just wow, 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 and I just could not figure out a way to get it taut enough to make it stop slapping up against there. Thus far, that's my only complaint. The setup, super duper fast. Takedown with the two of us was pretty fast as well. Really 2 thumbs up so far. All right, moving on to gear. I took these 2 large Reliance water tubs. They're each 7 gallons, I believe. The reason I took that much water is because we were going to be doing a bunch of backcountry roads in Big Bend, and I just did not want to have a flat and get stuck out there all day long and not have enough. That turned out to obviously be too much, but you know, I don't know if it would have been too much if something bad happened. In the back, I'll start taking some of this stuff out. I always take my Stanley water jug. This thing is fantastic. I've made a video on that before. This is a Nemo Helio pressure shower. You fill it up full of water. That puts pressure on it, and then you actually have this hose, and it really works pretty well. And I was able to use those jugs to carry water from the common use, water areas in different places we were. Fill this up and was able to rinse off, which was a very, very luxurious thing to have because it was incredibly hot. We got very unlucky with the weather. It was our 3 nights in Big Bend. I believe the highs those days were 101, 102, and 104. So it was sweltering. But to that end, I took the icy breeze. You've seen one of these things. It is a cooler that you obviously fill it full of ice, and it's a good cooler because that ice was loaded in there yesterday midday. We wound up not using this last night. It was cool enough where we were. On the way back, plug it in. It's got low, medium, highs, and this vent can open up and it blows cold air. It's sort of like a swamp cooler, but not quite. What's happening is there's a tube down here that's sucking in the water through this fan, so it's not putting moist air in the tent, which actually I would have loved for it too in Big Bend. It was so dry and dusty. This thing makes a humongous difference. It's actually probably the only reason we were able to camp without any issues at all for as many days as we did. This thing is unbelievable. And to make it better, it's sort of hard to do with one hand, but you take this out, it has a little connector. You can connect this, and it has a splitter. So you run one of these hoses and you just put it like directly on your face or directly on your chest when you're trying to sleep. And even if it's as hot as it was, the lows were like in the upper 70s. So when we were trying to go to bed, I think it was like in the upper 80s, low 90s. It was just crazy hot. But putting that on you, and it sounds counterintuitive, but if you put a little blanket over you and you run that underneath it, you can actually get, I would say, borderline cold in very, very hot weather. This thing was a lifesaver. Love it. Down here, I've already just pulled out a couple of things. That was what was in that. Oh, Camco leveling blocks. Those are just the yellow. Everyone's seen these. Every RV on the planet has one. You stack them up. We use those every night, even just to get a little bit level. I wish I had. They sell these little bubble levels to put here. I want to put those on both sides. I took a level with us, but it would just been a lot easier. This was just sort of recovery gear if needed. I had my level in there to see where we were. That's an ARB tire repair kit, jumper cables, one of these junky little, what am I trying to say, compressors. That's all in here, and I have a bunch of cables and stuff in here. Things like that. It was just, this mostly went unneeded except for the level, and that is a Reliance toilet. Here, this was just, I have the Nemo Stargazer. My daughter has a cheapo Walmart sling chair that she loves more than life itself. This was our food. This was not the only mistake I made, but one of the most significant was I brought way too much food. I have this jug, I have this jug, and I have one of those other jugs, plus what's in the plus what's in the refrigerator. We could have stayed out there for another week and come back home with food. That was bad planning on my part. We have, I don't know, I'm just used to usually going with more people, but for way shorter times. And it was the thing I saved to do at the last minute. And I just was just like, yeah, throw it in, and now I have. I mean, you see, like, we could be starting a trip with what I have left. For this trip, I took my Everest stove. I like it a lot. I have an adapter to go from the 1 pound green bottle size to the full size 20 pound. I need to get one of the more narrow. I think they're like 15 pounds or 10 pound propane tanks that would suck up in there a little bit more. But my wheel wells are pretty big, so that one actually works out okay. This is a very old school style Coleman propane lantern. I like it a lot. I absolutely hated it on this trip. Getting this thing out and put up, the pole is like now I think on the other side of those boxes. It just was a huge pain doing that every single night. If we do more trips like this, which I hope we do, I think I would probably mount, I've kind of been debating it anyway, mount a couple of floodlights back here on the back or on the side, down the passenger side, and that way with a second battery, just be able to click those on, set up camp, cook, and then just turn them off. And I have to worry about setting stuff up like this. I very much disliked dealing with this every single night, despite the fact that I actually really enjoy that lantern. Okay, let me put this down. I'm going to get some of these boxes out. Alright, so these are Front Runner Wolfpack boxes. These things are great, particularly for me in my truck. If I use one with a short lid, one with a tall lid, they fit just perfectly under the retracts. If I'm not using a rooftop tent, I can easily, and I need more space, I can easily throw them up on the Front Runner Slimline and then have a ton of space. Back here, they're pretty waterproof. I would say heavily water resistant and basically bomb proof. I just treat these things like junk and it works out perfectly. So I'll go through these boxes in more detail later. There's probably a video in and of itself, but I generally think about them as this is a tent box. It's sort of a vestige of when I didn't have the rooftop tent. A tent box, this is things like USB fans, games for the kids, batteries, headlamps, things like that. General camp, hatchets, fire starters, spare line, repair kits, things like that. Gas and miscellaneous is exactly what it sounds like. Dining plates and cups, exactly what it sounds like. Plates, Yetis, water bottles, things like that. Cookware too, ignore that. I'm sort of redoing my system over perpetually. It's just a food box. Oh, there actually is something I want to show you. This little thing right here was the best addition to the camp on this entire trip, and it was like $50. It is the Coleman Camp Oven, I think is what it's called. It costs like $50. I'll have to find a picture. There's no way I'll be able to set that up. But it packs flat. You expand it up into a box. You set it on top of your Coleman stove, and it has a wire rack you can set in there. And it's to bake. And we baked calzones, basically. We baked biscuits. We baked something else. I can't remember. We baked 3 times. But it all came out great. I didn't have high expectations. I thought it was going to be stupid. I was prepared to make a "this is dumb" video, but this thing was awesome, and it's like $50. Not that that's like nothing, but like for the amount of value it added to the camp out, this is great. I would recommend this to anybody. I've used it 3 times. For the things that I made, biscuits, cinnamon rolls, and calzones, fantastic. This thing is awesome. In the last box is my primary cook kit. We used paper plates this time because I didn't know how much water we were going to have. I don't like using that. I prefer to even do wash just to save the paper, but I didn't know how much water we're going to have. I used GSI non-stick. The Snow Peak nested pots are great. There's 2 pots in here. There's a strainer, some little foldable cutting boards. We'll go through this in more detail later, but that's sort of my general camp organization strategy. Basically, a camp box, a tent box, 2 cooking boxes, and the gas box. And if I need anything else, I don't have to bring 6. I can just bring 5. Up there, and this is one of the negatives about the retracts. I don't know see if I can get it to focus up there or not. Maybe not, but it has the box up front, and so it's always tough to find something to use that little dead space underneath there. It's kind of annoying. The pro is you get easy access to your bed. The con, you know, to pay for that, you have to give up some access up front. I just put some water jugs up there. Again, I brought tons of water. We had 6 days in the desert. The last thing is, this was our changing room. I'm not gonna set this up either because I'm actually gonna make, I liked it so much I'm gonna make another video on it. That is the Julka pop-up shower tent. It is great. It goes up like, if you're familiar with those Coleman pop-up tents, identical to that. Fabric's probably a little bit better, but it's really nicely designed. It's got a couple little pockets in there which make a lot of sense. It seems pretty heavy duty, and you can buy a plumbing kit to just hang a shower up there. I have the Julka, I didn't take that this time, but I have the Julka water heater. But I have the Julka water heater that works awesome, so I'm going to try to pair that with that, and I think that will turn out to be a huge thing on our weekend trips. Okay, on the other side, we talked about the tent. On this side, another, as I was cleaning all the stuff out, another Blue Ridge Overland Gear Molly panel, another battery. This is, I had to borrow this. Oh, this is a story for another day. But I have a Goal Zero 400X that I normally use to run the air conditioner or the Icy Breeze, and it broke. It's less than 3 years old. It's kind of annoying. I'm going to tell about my story with that later. I had to borrow my friend's EcoFlow to put, which is way too much. I mean, it uses like 10% of this thing a night. I could use it for, you know, a week or two. And then we use this area to basically live out of, you know, with our clothes and whatnot. I could set that Julka pop-up shower, changing room, toilet situation kind of right here. We could live out of this. If you needed to go to, my daughter needed to go to the bathroom at night, it's just come in right here. It was a really nice setup. Nothing in the passenger seat except, you know, the dirt from a 12-year-old. And I think that is really it. So what did I do right on my first, it wasn't overlanding. I mean, we did some remote roads, but it wasn't overland. But an overland style trip. Took plenty of water. Rooftop tent was great. Plenty of food. Knew where we were going. All that kind of stuff. All that kind of gear was great. What did I do wrong? I took too much water, too much food. We already talked about that. The lighting situation is terrible. I got to figure something else. Even the lantern for the tent, that tent's so dark up there. I need like something that just mounts up there permanently that goes in with the fold up. Getting that Coleman lantern out and backing it and hanging it from its tripod every single day was terrible. Oh, I didn't even talk about. So on this side, I did run the spring bar AutoFly awning. Let me get that out. This was like a pro and a con. Okay, so this is the spring bar AutoFly awning. It basically is a tarp that you insert 2 poles together, and then you can hang it from here very easily. It makes a rigid end, and then I'll have to just post a picture of it or something, but it makes a rigid end that you can loop onto there pretty quickly, and then it has 3 poles and you can tarp it out. So this awning is sort of great and not great depending on the style of trip you're taking. I actually really like it for the normal style of trip we do, which is, you know, somewhere for the weekend, or we're gonna go spend an entire day up at Red River riding an ATV, something like that. You can spend the time, set it up. It actually has really nice coverage area. It guys out really taut. In the wind, it was great. It extends out past here, well past the bed, so you can kind of set a table up. It's actually a really cool awning, and it was $100, I think. So it was a really nice value compared to something like, you know, the big 270s, which are like $1,000. But for this style of trip where you're going somewhere every single day, or maybe even you want to set it up twice in a day, it wasn't the best. If we were doing this style of trip more often, or maybe even the next one we do, I'm definitely going to consider changing up this awning situation where in places we're going out to the desert, we need shade and we need it easy. The AutoFly was not the best, but that's not really like a knock on the product itself. It's just a knock on my application of it. It wasn't great. So that is it. That is my thoughts on all the gear we used on our West Texas road trip extravaganza. If you have any questions, hit me up in the comments below. I'll definitely get back to you. If you thought this video was helpful, hit the like button. Definitely hit subscribe. And until next time, Go have some fun outside. See you soon.